Maria, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's start off with an introduction. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, who I am has changed in the last couple of months. I'm a mom.
I love that.
I I have like 20 years of experience in corporate finance, but now I'm the founder of Dinero in Spanish. So I'm a mom, a wife, a human being that enjoys talking about money.
I love it. And you talk about it in Español on your platform.
Everything in Espanol, yes. Serving our community in the US and Puerto Rico.
Fantastic. We need so much more Spanish language content out there. Like even if you go to, major banking websites, I mean, just the lack of multilingual financial content is wild to me, considering the fact that it is 2024. And you would think, these companies, these institutions would realize Spanish is the second most spoken language in the United States. So why the hell are we just ignoring the fact that there's a huge part of this population that needs this information in a language other than English? So I think the work that you're doing is really inspiring, really needed. And I want us to take a road trip back in time where we find out more about you, your career, and kind of what led you to this point. So tell me what it was like. You were born and raised in Puerto Rico. Tell me about your childhood, maybe some of the things that you learned about money or did not, and what your trajectory with your career has looked like since then.
I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. My parents are probably the most hardworking people that I know. I always say that if retirement funds were an equivalent of the effort that they put in their business because they were business owners in the island, they will be billionaires today, right? So I admire them like everything, but they had their own business. So I was raised in a business owner house in Puerto Rico.
What kind of businesses?
They had clothing stores. Unfortunately, they didn't switch their business model when JCPenney lowered their prices, when Walmart started doing business in Puerto Rico, when TJ Maxx, Marshalls, those businesses joined the island. But at one point, they had 4 stores, one in Rio Grande, 2 in Loíza, and 1 inside the El Comandante, the horse race place. So the story of my family says that they were successful at some point. But when I turned 18, they were like, well, Social Security is running out for you. You have to go find a job. So I went and worked retail, supermarkets, big chain stores. And at that time, I was the first person in my family that brought a college diploma. So they were like, go get a job and bring me your college diploma. We need it. Like, okay, mom and dad. So I did my bachelor degree in the University of Puerto Rico in Carolina in finance. Then I moved into doing my master in accounting. Then at 26, my job in Puerto Rico was like, well, do you want to move to Miami? Because we're moving the accounting department to Miami. And I'm like, okay, let's go. What do I have to lose? Nothing. And that started my shopaholic journey. If you have visited Puerto Rico, you know Puerto Rico has 2 outlet malls, the Canóvanas and Barceloneta. That's it. And then I get into Miami and my eyes were like shining stars. Oh my God, let me go shopping. So all this to say that my bachelor degree and my master and my eventual CPA didn't prepare me for any of the personal finance stuff that I'm teaching today and that I learned so far. Then the family started to grow. I didn't know how expensive childcare was in the US. My mom used to take care of my neighbor's kids for $20 a week in Puerto Rico. And here I'm paying thousands of dollars, right? Like $1,500 or something for a newborn. I'm like, oh, shoot. So I continue to rake up credit cards. I even at some point had overdraft fees on my bank account. And yeah, like know that your finance person or your CPA might not be the best person in personal finance. Okay. So there's no guaranteed here. Fast forward 2019, when I moved to Miami was 2006. I have my first child in 2009 and then another one in 2016. Then in 2019, we are now living in North Carolina. And I told my husband, dang, we have been working 20 plus years. And if we continue to do what we are doing, we have to work 20 plus years more. And at this point, we are making 120 or more plus bonuses. I left Puerto Rico with a salary of $20K a year. My first salary in Miami was $40K a year. So our salary increased a lot, but we were just enjoying life and having fun. Like, I work for this. I can use my money. I can do whatever I want. And I decided to change my life, my family life, and our financial future. And that's when Dinero in Spanglish came in, right? Yeah, because I was like, if it's me with my bachelor degree in finance, master in accounting, I'm a CPA, I work for corporate doing numbers, and I don't know anything about personal finances, I'm sure the rest of the population in the US and in Puerto Rico are same or worse than me. I love my shopping. I love eating out, but my money in investments and in savings, using my money intentionally has more power than just having the closets full of clothing.
Absolutely. I think a lot of us can resonate with that. I know I was the same way when I graduated college, got my first job making $42,000 a year. And I was like, oh my God, this is more money than I've ever seen in my life. I got to go and upgrade the car and get the apartment and buy all the things. And it's like, oh, so this is what I signed up for, to be living paycheck to paycheck. And I think it's normalized for a lot of us, just living in debt, having credit card debt, keeping up with the Joneses, doing things because that's just what you're supposed to do, or that's what everybody's doing. That puts you on this treadmill of always trying to keep up and catch up. What was the first thing that you did in order to start changing your money habits? Because that's a really hard thing to do. What was the first step that you took?
The first thing that I did, good or bad, was I listened to Dave Ramsey. It was actually, we were on a road trip, my children and I, my husband stayed home. We were on a road trip to the mountains of North Carolina, and I put that audiobook on. And I'm like, dang, dude, chill. Like, but then at the same time, many of the things, like some of the baby steps resonated with me. When I came back, I told my husband, I need you to download the last year of your credit card statements and your debit card statements. I'm going to do an analysis of what's happening in this house. When I did that, I realized that we were spending not only $1,000 at the supermarket, and this was before the inflation, right? This was 2019. We were spending that, but we were spending between $500 to $1,000 in shopping every weekend, or buy now on the phone, plus $500 to $700 eating out. That's like a per person salary. We were making all this money, but all that money was just flowing out the house. I'm like, how impactful will be for our family if we use this money for something else? And then I read Ramit's I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And then I started reading other Facebook groups and ideas of how other people were just planning to retire early. And I'm like, what? Is this a thing? Is this a thing? And that changed my life.
The FIRE movement is the thing that definitely set my finances on the path that they are today. We're not even given that information unless you like go and actively find the FIRE movement through Googling, how do you quit your job? How do you stop working? That's when you can start finding these topics. But I feel like it's almost this secret universe that still a lot of people don't know about. So for anybody who hasn't heard about the FIRE movement, it is an alternative lifestyle, I would call it, where folks are using the majority of their income in order to invest, to create passive income streams, to basically opt out of corporate decades potentially before normal retirement, which we've been told is between the ages of like 65 and 70. That whole movement for me made me realize that retirement is not actually an age, that we don't need to wait until 65 plus, that it is actually a number. So for you, when you find out about this movement, what was your first reaction? Because I know for me, it was kind of like skepticism. What was your first reaction? And how did you bring this up to your spouse too, right? Because you have to get the family involved at this point.
Yeah, I think my first thought was like, oh, I can make my escape plan. But that included talk about FIRE with my husband, right? He was, his parents are government employees in Puerto Rico and they retire from there. So for him, working is something that you always do. For me, it was like, I don't want to do that forever. And then it was a switch about like when we went into putting everything in motion, our first couple of goals was like, we need to increase our savings because we had savings, but it was not enough to cover 3 to 6 months of our family expenses. And we also had $60,000 in debt, which were cars. At that point, we knew how to use credit cards. We were not in debt of credit cards, but we had the auto loans there. So I'm like, we can pay these cars off. And then he started like, but what about if I have a car crash? What's going to happen? Am I going to put all that money in my car? And then these are like things that regular people that don't know how interest work, talk about those things, right? How am I going to live without debt? Is that even possible? When I'm done with this car, I'm going to buy a new one because I want the new one with the new bells and whistles, right? So for us, it was that. And also, up until this day, he likes to calculate his own fire number or the family fire number, but it's in his own calculator. We have reached already coast to 5, so that gave us a bunch of peace on our side, but sometimes he still does not believe how far we have come in only 4 or 5 years. We are consumer debt free. We have an investment property in the North Carolina coast. We don't have any credit card debt. We don't have any auto loan debt. We had minimal student loan debt when we live in Puerto Rico. So after I made that original assessment, we figured that we were not that behind. At some point, we listened to the people in HR that told us, put money in your 401k. And we did it. That's it.
I love that. I think it's really important to make sure that you are creating a plan that's sustainable in this process, right? Because I think when people first find out about fire, they calculate their fire number. They see like, oh my God, 1.5, $2 million, whatever that number is. They start freaking out and they're just like, this is ridiculous. How the hell am I ever going to get to this number? I'm not even going to start. So when you decided to redirect your spending away from the groceries, away from the eating out, what were you redirecting that towards? And then how were you making this a sustainable journey for you and your family?
Our first redirection was to savings and paying off the debt, paying off the cars. And after we reached that in approximately 18 months, then our direction was like maxing out 401k. And each of us had to, at the minimum, add into our brokerage account $12,000 a year, each of us.
So like $1,000 a month.
That was our goal. Getting out of debt, increasing our savings, and then increasing our investments. And the rest of the money now is just for enjoying life with the kids.
So were you like meal prepping more at home? Did you just stop going to restaurants as much? Or how did you make those lifestyle changes?
We did start doing family challenges. Not so funny enough, when we started going all the way, it was January 2020. So February 2020, we did like a challenge of let's not eat out. That month we didn't eat out, but that was our preparation for what's coming in March 2020 without knowing. So some people's negative impact of COVID was a blessing in our house that allowed us to, like, we started our plan in October 2019. I paid off my car in June 2020. With the refunds from trips that we didn't make, spending that we didn't do. And then my husband had the savings to pay for his car, but he was so afraid of living without debt that he took another year until he paid off his car.
It's whatever works, right? Like whatever works for your psychological situation. You know, I think you have to pick the journey that is going to be sustainable for you. And I like the fact that you guys had the plan, but you were also giving each other this space to kind of accomplish it according to your own goals. So when it comes to now teaching this stuff, how did that manifest itself? Tell me more about Dinero in Spanglish and how that came about.
Dinero in Spanglish started as a passion project. Like many things we do, it was like, I'm learning all of this, I need to share it. I started with YouTube, of course, then the pandemic hit. I could not record at home with 2 children. Then I moved into blogging. I don't know anything about SEO, so my blog is there with a bunch of things that nobody looks at. And then I decided to join social media and then eventually the podcast. So you can find me everywhere as Dinero in Spanglish. Now we have a community of, let's say, 40, 50,000 people around all platforms. The podcast finally has 16,000 downloads. Yay.
Wow. Congrats. That's awesome.
Yes. So it has been an evolution. I think part of the things that people have to realize, not only in business, but in finances, is whatever you started is not the way you're ending or that you're continuing. You have to adapt and change and learn more. So I'm still reading books. I'm still taking, because I'm CPA, I have to take some continuing education. So I'm changing to personal finance and retirement planning and tax planning and all of that, which are topics that are important to me, but also to teach people in social media, but also in my programs.
And how did you come to the decision to make your content in Spanish? Why was that important to you?
Listen to this accent. No, it was really like I could find all the content in English, but there was nobody that I could identify myself in Spanish. There were people in Spanish, but they were not coming from Puerto Rico. They were not a person that decided to move to Miami and then have children in the US and then I have a high salary paying job. They were not like me, so I could not find myself out there as a powerful woman teaching personal finance.
I love that. Sometimes you have to show up at a space where you don't see yourself represented. And that is what gives other people permission to then feel like they can also achieve what you've been able to do. So I applaud you and commend you for putting yourself out there. Let's talk to the folks who are in that beginning journey who know that the way that they're operating with their money is just not working out. They might be living paycheck to paycheck. They might be earning a high salary, 6 figures, but they feel like they're not making any financial progress. What's the first step that you would recommend that they do in order to start making some serious changes?
The first step is make an assessment of where you are. It can be taking a piece of paper, calculating your net worth, your assets minus your liabilities. You might pass out after you look at those numbers. It's okay. Then when you wake up, you can start doing an analysis, if you can, of your last 30, 60 days transaction. Don't go like me for a year. That was overkill, but I like Excel, so that was me. Analyze your past 30 or 60 days of spending. Ask yourself, is my money going to where I want that money to go? Or is my money going out there with its own legs disappearing from my bank account, right? So, because it's the truth. You have a high salary, or maybe you don't have a high salary, but the money disappears every month. You're surviving. Get out of that survival mode and tell your money where to go. But you start that by analyzing your numbers as they are today.
Mm-hmm. When it comes to budgeting, do you have a preferred method, and what's the personal way that you budget?
I started with the zero-based budget today because I don't have any debt and my transactions are in autopilot, my savings and my investments. I simply don't budget. I have money going to my savings. I have money going to my investments. The rest of the money is to enjoy or to other savings, right? I love the high yield savings account that have buckets. So that way you can put automation into, okay, I need money for the back to school. I need money for my summer vacations. I need money for my Christmas vacations. And I need money because I like money, right? So do your buckets and let that money flow. But we started with the zero-based budget. And I even had a notebook because when you manage finances as a family, this was a family effort. This was not Maria hiding numbers from the family. I had a notebook in which we used to monitor the eating outs, the entertainment, even the gas, the supermarket, the haircuts, and then my family. I even put my son, which was much younger at that time, in charge of the eating out budget because he's the one that loves to eat out. So we had a whiteboard in the kitchen and he will subtract from the budget. Like, you have to make a decision. Do we eat 2 times fast food or we sit at a restaurant? So that was also part of the teaching for the family.
I love that. Just getting everybody involved and having them be a part of the process. I think that's really, really good strategy to make everybody feel like they're part of this collective goal. For folks who don't know what a zero-based budget is, can you give us like a brief overview?
It's basically you're telling each of your dollars where to go. Your income minus the money you're sending to savings and investment, minus your payments to debt, minus your fixed and necessary expenses, minus your variable and not necessary expenses equals 0 at the end of each month or at the end of each pay cycle or pay period.
Mm-hmm. And so you were tracking this with a notebook, but are there like digital tools that people can use in order to make a zero-based budget?
There's a bunch of digital tools. One that I'm using myself, but my family doesn't have access these days. And hopefully I can say the name. It's Rocket Money. That's very convenient, right? But when you're managing finances as a family, you either have to make sure that everybody has access to the app or that you have a backup plan like a paper, a whiteboard, or a weekly meeting or a monthly meeting in which you talk about finances together.
Yeah, I love that. I love the Empower app or the Empower platform for calculating your net worth. It's a free tool. It's linked in my money tools. You can go to YoQuieroDineroPodcast.com/money tools to get your copy of that app. For me, that was the first way that I realized like what the hell was happening with my money, just linking all of your accounts, your investment accounts, debit card, your credit accounts, your debt accounts. And that for me, when I first realized that I had a negative net worth, I did what you said, like passed out and died. And I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. What am I going to do? But you need to know where you're starting from in order to start making these changes. So when I saw that, I'm like, this doesn't feel good. I need to change this. I need to get that number first to a 0 and then to a positive. But if you don't know where you're starting from, it can feel very much like you're not making any financial progress. It's like trying to lose weight and you don't even know like what your starting weight was. So like, what the hell do I know? You know, where did I start from? I have no idea. Is this good or bad? So while it is scary as hell to see that information, it is a necessary evil, if you will. You have to know where you're at in order to start making some changes. Now, I think one of the things that intimidates people about the whole like FIRE movement is this existential crisis that you have to start thinking about, like, what am I going to do once work is no longer required? Because especially in our community, we're conditioned, we just must always be doing something. This concept of rest, of having free time, of being able to invest in self-care and like not having responsibilities, it's like a foreign thing. You know, it can almost be seen as like, what are you, lazy? You don't want to work? So what do you tell to people that that's their reaction as to like why maybe the FIRE movement doesn't even make sense? Or maybe that, because there's a lot of emotions, I think, that come up when you tell people, hey, you don't actually have to be out here killing yourself for the majority of your life.
There are so many things that I can say, but I'm going to say, as the time we're recording this podcast, I'm a living example that there's more to do than work your desk job. I resigned to my corporate job on September 29th. I have been since then working on my projects, working on Dinero in Spanglish, being available for my family, just watching a movie sometimes in the middle of the week, then working out and cooking and doing all the things. So you have to think outside the box. And this FIRE movement, it's completely outside the box. If you're not ready to live like nobody else or more than half of the population is not living, you have to go and check testimonials of people that are living the life that you want. And it's completely like, how many more projects on how many more things can you do if you didn't have to work your regular job? Forget about how many things you can do. How available can you be for your family, either aging parents, your children, or your community, if you didn't have to be stuck within the 8 to 5, 9 to 5, or whatever that looks for you? That's an answer that some of you can answer. It takes time. Many people are afraid. My husband is one that says, I love my job. I'm never going to retire. And I'm like, bye, baby. Like my retirement date is July 2030. Regardless if it's Dinero in Spanglish or my corporate job, I'm done. You guys learn now, because after 2030, I'm done. Bye.
Hell yeah. We love a woman with goals.
Yes. Goals I have plenty of goals.
Yes, that's the thing. I feel like so many of us just define ourselves by work, right? Because that's just like societally, what's one of the first things that you ask somebody when you meet them? Oh, what do you do for work? So when you don't have that as like the way that you define your worth in the world, I think it takes a lot of people aback. It's just like, it makes them start to question, like, why am I placing so much emphasis on this shit, whether it's a title or a job or a salary? Like, there's so much more to us as human beings than just what we do, quote unquote, for a living. And I think it was a big unlearning for me when I decided to go on this journey myself, was to just be okay with the fact that I will be shedding a lot of these quote unquote markers of success that people around me have placed a ton of value on, you know, whether that's, you know, being an engineer, being in a Fortune 50 company, having a specific degree, blah, blah, blah. Like none of that shit matters to me anymore. And I think once you get past those blocks, it becomes easier to embrace this idea that you will evolve and that the things that matter to you in the past might not necessarily matter to you going forward.
Yeah, and success to me today looks completely different than a couple of years ago, right? Success to me today.
Oh, talk about that. Yeah.
It's like being able to, my children are in a school that does not provide school bus. So success to me today is dropping them off and picking them up, being available. It's success to me. We talked a couple of months ago. I'm like, success to me is like my calendar is blocked on Fridays. I don't do anything on Friday. I sometimes go grocery shopping or sometimes I don't do anything. I open my calendar recently for other purposes, but before, to me, success was reaching the 150K salary a year. Success to me was being done with my checklist at work. Now I value my family more than anything, right? And we as women, we have all these expectations, and I don't know how I used to do it. Waking up the children at like 6 in the morning, dropping them off before school at 7 in the morning, going to the office, getting out of the office at 4:30, to get in rush hour traffic, to pick them up, to do after school activities, to then make dinner, to blah, 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 blah. And the list doesn't end, right? So, and I'm like, leave me alone. I just want money to come to me and be happy and have freedom. That's it.
Absolutely. And I think when we have more women with those options, I think the world and the way that like our children are being raised and just like society in general will just become a better place when women are not overworked and underpaid and stressed out and pouring from empty cups. Your family's going to get a better version of you. You're going to be able to give them a better version of you because it's not just like always trying to keep up. I think about the sacrifices that my mom made to be able to be available to me and my sister. Her biggest sacrifice was her career. She worked part-time until I was in high school. She did not have retirement benefits. She did not have health benefits. A lot of these things that she had to sacrifice were because she wanted the availability. And I hate the fact that so many people have to choose that. And I think now with the FIRE movement, you actually have the option to create a system using money to give your family that option, but also not sacrificing your financial future. And so I think that's a really powerful shift that we're making. And just if you want to be more available to your family, take the time to get your financial shit together. Because when you don't have debt, when you have multiple income streams, when you're investing with your future in mind, you're giving yourself space to now be able to pour into the things that really matter to you and not have to just give the crumbs to everybody around you because you're just spending so much time trying to make a dollar. One of the things that you talked about before, and I want to expand on this for folks who haven't heard about the concept, is Coast FIRE or Coast FI. So can you explain to us what that is and how did you and your husband come to that number?
Yeah, so Coast FIRE, it's that point in your financial journey in which the balances of your investment accounts, specifically retirement accounts in our case, if we don't invest another dollar in those accounts, we still reach traditional retirement. Even before, we still reach our financial independence number at the traditional age of retirement, right? So in theory, as of today or as of few months ago, my husband and I do not need to put another dollar in our retirement investment accounts. Now, he says it's going to work for a long time. So he keeps pouring there. I'm fine with it. More money for us.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, you want to get to a place where you have enough invested that with compound interest and with the time that the money's invested in the market, it's going to continue to grow exponentially so that when you reach traditional retirement age around 65, you basically have saved up X amount of millions of dollars, right? And obviously that number changes based on a lot of different factors, like who's going to be financially dependent on you, where are you going to live, what are your monthly expenses going to be, are you going to have other sources of income, are you just going to stop working completely, what are you going to do for health insurance, right? There's a lot of questions to ask yourself, but I think the biggest goal for most of us should be to front load our investment accounts as much as possible, get them invested in low cost index funds, ETFs, something diversified, and just let the magic of the market do its work, right? Let the power of compound interest help you grow that nest egg to a place where if you want to invest more, like your husband's doing, great. You're just going to make that number bigger, but you have that pressure taken off of you if you want to redirect money that you've been pouring into investments to go and do other things, whether that's starting a new passion project or buying more real estate or getting yourself a boat, whatever the hell it is you want to do.
It's options, right? Options everywhere.
It's options. That is it. And I think that's when I think of one word that describes the financial independence movement, it is that. It is options. It gives you the option to really become intentional about designing your life and prioritizing your time towards the things that matter because money is no longer the main driver of what you do with your time. And I'm really excited to talk about that in my book. There's a whole chapter about it, Financially Lit. I actually have your story, Maria, about estate planning and the importance of that in my chapter about estate planning and passing on generational wealth. I know you've spoken in media articles about like how important that whole process is. What are you doing personally to make sure that you're passing on generational wealth that maybe you didn't have access to as a kid?
We were very fortunate that my husband's job, and everybody go check your benefits at work, they had the legal assistant. And one of them was you pay like $5 a month out of your paycheck, but then you get some services. One of them was estate planning. So we, taking advantage of that, we went ahead and did our trust, our will, our medical directives, and a bunch of things, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. We have children, we have assets, we have built a net worth that we could never imagine, right? And one thing, after still being working with the legal system in Puerto Rico, trying to liquidate my parents' assets, the more things you can leave in writing on their good legal documents, the better. You're going to save your family thousands of dollars and years of work. I know people don't want to talk about death, but it's not only death. Like, we are protecting our family from who's going to make decisions over my body. If I'm sick, I put there the doctor. I don't want my family to have those decisions. What's going to happen with my body? It's going to burn. I don't want it's there, right? What's going to happen with my organs? You can have it, science. What's going to happen with my children? We name a couple of people that we trust that if something happened to both of us, our children are taken care and our assets are managed by X person in our family. So all of those things and more, please take time to talk with a lawyer. Get your documents in place. The more you can make decisions over your body and your life and your finances, the better. The less headache your family is going to have.
Yeah. And it's like the last kind of bow that you should be thinking about putting on all of this stuff that you're building. When you're buying real estate and creating generational wealth, how are you going to facilitate the transfer of this stuff? That's the whole point of estate planning, right? It's like, do you want the government to decide because that's what's going to happen? Or do you want to be the one that's in charge to make sure that the people that you love and that matter most to you and that you've been doing all of this stuff for are the ones that actually get to benefit the most from all the work that you're doing? So it is difficult conversations to have, but I think it's an essential part of this whole process when we're thinking about becoming first generation wealth builders and just making sure that the legacies that we're building live on way past when we're not here anymore.
And that's something that people should not go ahead and DIY. Please pay your fees. If you don't have the benefits at work, every state is different. Just go and pay someone to do it. Don't try to do online services, please.
Yeah, there are some things in life that you should not DIY, and anything requiring legal expertise, I definitely recommend that, as well as accounting. Okay. I will never recommend that a business owner does their own accounting because God knows the IRS tax system is insane. And I'm not about to become a student of that as well. So make sure that you get a trusted group of experts around you to really help you navigate this world of money because it can get complex. So I want to talk about this incredible event that you have coming up in Puerto Rico. Tell us what it is, who it's for, how folks can become a part of it, the inspiration behind it. Tell me everything.
The inspiration behind it was you. Our money, our power. And we have been talking, a couple of local Puerto Rican personal finance influencers, educators, professionals have been talking about the need of having an event in Puerto Rico. So when I came back from Our Money, Our Power, I reached out to one of them and I'm like, we are going to do this in San Juan. They were like, okay. So I called a couple of hotels. I called Centro de Convenciones, which is where it's going to happen. And 15 of us are going to share the stage. And we're going to talk about investing. We're going to talk about real estate. We're going to talk about retirement. We're going to talk about all things personal finance. This year is just one full day pack of activities. Eventually, if we get sponsors, we can make a multi-day event. But Janice knows there's a lot of work behind the scenes. So we're going to be there April 27 at Centro de Convenciones in San Juan, Puerto Rico. If you want to be part of history, if you want to be there, know that we're going to be there giving a bunch of high quality personal finance education and content there for the community. So I hope to see you all there. If you're in Puerto Rico, or if you need an excuse to go to San Juan, Puerto Rico, come and join us. It's going to be all in Spanish.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was going to ask. So it's called Dinero Con, and it is at the Centro de Convenciones de Puerto Rico, April 27th, 2024. That is so exciting to see that there are these conversations happening in our community for the people, by the people. Like, this is how we change our communities, y'all. It's the grassroots movements, it's the people realizing that we need to be showing up for ourselves, that we cannot wait for corporate organizations, sponsors to care about why this is important. We know why this is important. And I commend you and the rest of the speakers who are working to put this together. This is not easy to do. It's a lot to undertake, but you know that the need is there. And so I'm so excited for you guys. I'm wishing you so much success. And I want to know, I heard a little secret. I don't know if we can share this yet, but you might be working on some published work.
I'm working on it. You know, it's a lot of work. It's all written.
Oh, girl, I know.
It's all written. I started writing a book inspired by Our Money, Our Power. I got a lot out of Our Money, Our Power. When Bernadette Joy said, "Get your money out of this event," I got it. So I very inspired. I have been writing and editing. I just need to do the next step. So that's coming. It's not ready yet. My goal was to publish for the Dinero Con. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I have everything ready. Everything is ready. I just need to release it out to the world.
That's amazing. We're so excited to see that and to just continue to support the work that you're doing. For folks that want to find you, follow you, listen to the podcast, join Dinero Con, tell us where we can find out more information.
You can find more information everywhere in every social media under Dinero in Spanglish. You can message me, DM me, I'm there. And then dinerocon.com is the website to go get your tickets for our event in San Juan, Puerto Rico.
Amazing. Maria, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the work that you're doing. It is so inspiring to see a fellow Boricua taking the mantle en Espanol, being an incredible leader that is helping our people move forward with their money, normalizing conversations about what it is to build wealth. And just know that you have so much support on my side. And I can't wait for folks to find out more about what you're working on. And I hope to see a lot of you guys going to Puerto Rico, because I might be a little biased, but it's the best fucking place on planet Earth. Okay. So make sure that you find a reason to go and enjoy yourselves. Thank you, Maria, for being here.
Thank you for having me.